And so, part of being a family is having a feeling like you belong. And that means that, when people aren't here, that we notice. And so I just want to encourage us, just as a friendly reminder, when people aren't here, don't assume that they're okay. And follow up and just be a family, loving family, and all that. Our family is sick, and so Laura and the boys are at home nursing a few boys. She's been doing all she could to nurse me. So pray for me that I have enough boys to get through this. I think I'm on the mend pretty well. Maybe some of you are also facing similar ailments and situations. We are here in our sermon series titled Identity Theft, and so welcome to week number 3. Week number 3. Next week we're going to wrap up this series with a common lie that many of us wrongly believe, and it's the performance lie, and I think it's a big one, culturally speaking. It's a big one for me, but I think in our cultural setting, I think in Asian culture, in Asian American culture, I think our young people will relate to this, and it's the lie that we believe we are what we do. We are what we do. We have to perform to be successful. A lot of times when we meet somebody, that's kind of the first thing we ask them. Oh, what do you do? And then we automatically make some judgment about who they are. And so we want to kind of get to the root of that. We'll do that next week. This week I asked people on Facebook, some of you may have responded, what areas they feel they are not good enough. And that's the lie that we're going to deal with this morning. I am not good enough. And many people responded. I was really encouraged to get so many responses. And I want to share some of the answers of the people who responded to how do you feel like you are not good enough. And so one person put meeting the expectations of others. Just not very good at meeting the expectations of others. Or being a mom. Several friends of ours said being a mom. Love and relationships. Just don't feel like I'm very good at that. Some people put job security. Somebody put things related to their career. Many people responded to parenting. I'm just not good enough as a parent. Probably all of us parents feel that way at some point, right? I mean, where's the manual? There's some good resources, but sometimes you just have no idea. And then a lot of students would say studies and meeting the expectation of my fill in the blank parents. That's big. So for all of you who ever felt that way or feel that way this morning, I want you to be encouraged this morning. Even some of the greatest heroes of the faith, even some of the great heroes of the Bible, we're going to look at my hero of the Old Testament this morning and how he felt that way as well. That's Moses in the Old Testament. We're going to look at how he struggled with the thoughts and feelings that go along with not feeling like you're good enough. But before we look at his story, let's review our key thought for the series. So if you're taking notes in your bulletin, you've got these notes. I like to call it the stay awake note fill in the blanks there. Every once in a while, we'll refer to that. Bump your neighbor if they're having a hard time staying awake. And so if I hold this up and go, psh, it's not working, we're going to correct that though. And you know who we got on this job? A person who would never fail us. Many of you are very faithful, but Sherry is going to take care of this for us. So we're on it, okay? We understand. Flicker's a problem. We'll have it resolved in the next couple of weeks. And so here's the key thought. A lie believed as if it were true, a lie believed as truth, will affect you as if it were true, right? So in my neighborhood, one of the boys told Emmett that there's a snake that lives down there. Well, if you believe that there's a snake, you're going to walk around there. However, I was running the other day, and I was turning the corner there, and do you know what I saw on the sidewalk? A 3-foot snake. Okay, this is right off of what road? Richter Farm Road. Okay, right off Richter Farm Road, right on the sidewalk. So many of you live in that neighborhood. I can now affirm that may not have been a lie, because I almost stepped on it and I freaked out. And I'm not sure if our friend or neighbor was actually lying. Now, maybe true. But if we believe something that's not true as if it were true, it affects us like it were true. Moses was like that. In Exodus 4, God himself calls Moses to deliver his people. he calls him. He gives him the instructions. And watch as Moses feels like many of us feels. This is in Exodus. Oh, I didn't have my Bible right there. And this is really part of the very beginning of where God reveals himself. He's starting now to reveal himself. Moses says to the Lord, "O Lord, I have never been eloquent," even though he was raised in the house of Pharaoh, "neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." So in other words, if you didn't get that, don't put me up in front of people. Don't put me in front of people. God, I'm with you to a certain extent, but that's not for me. I wig out, man. I freeze. Don't put me in front of people. I get nervous. I'm not a good speaker. Bottom line, God, I'm not good enough for what you're calling me to do. And so if you miss the rest of this message, that's exactly the response that all of us have. And really it's true, right? I am not good enough for what you're calling me to do. But, do you remember what Peter said? "But, Lord, since you said it, I will do it." Jesus said, "Peter, you've been fishing all night. You didn't catch anything. Put your net on the other side." Rabbi? Teacher? Like, you know anything about fishing? What do you know about fishing? "Oh, but since you said it, I will do it." That's the bottom line, right? So many of us believe this lie, and it affects us as if it were true, because we base our worth, who we really are, our worth, on things that are not true. So if you're taking notes, so many of us believe the lie, first of all, that our worth depends on what people say about us. If you're taking notes, you can fill in the blank there. What people say about us. Some of you grew up, many of you are in the process of growing up, in a home where you get a lot of encouragement, and you feel good about yourself when you grow up in a home where you get a lot of encouragement. I grew up, as much as I grew up in a broken family, my parents were divorced, I grew up with my mom, there was a lot of insecurities. However, I grew up in a home where there was a lot of encouragement. And so I tended to feel throughout my childhood and even till today like I'm special. Because my mom told me every day in my life how special I was. And I'm the oldest son on both sides, and that's kind of special. And I'm special to my grandparents. And I'm special. So, I'm special. My buddy Mark Bonner, bless his soul, he's not on planet Earth anymore, but he used to call me Spedward. Some of you didn't get that yet, but maybe you will. Or maybe others of you are growing up, or you grew up hearing things that were the opposite. You're no good at, or why can't you be more like your brother, or you should be more like your sister, or if only you had, or if only you were. Some of you heard that, and you hear that in the same way consistently, and you believe that's part of your identity. And you say, you know what, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I'm really not that good. If you're like me, someone says something good and you feel really good about yourself, Yeah, and there's some emotion with that. And then 5 minutes later, somebody says something negative, critical, and you get down, Some of you are more like Laura, and she's more even-keeled. But I tend to go up and down with my emotions. Some of you can relate. Another common lie, if you're taking notes, we believe that our worth is based on not just what people say, but our past experiences or our past performances. Look at that a little more next week. So, our family background. So if you come from a successful family, whether it be in business or medical field or law or in any type of success or wealthy kind of family, then you tend to think certain things about yourself that may not be true. I deserve this. I'm from this family, right? Paul says in Philippians, here's my prestigious background. I was born of this tribe, I was from this place. I was a Pharisee of Pharisees. As to the law, I was zealous, I was perfect. All these things that made him believe a lie about himself before Jesus blinded him with the light. And he thought, I am special. Because of the family background that he came from. Or maybe if your parents divorced, or if there was abuse in your family, if you saw certain things in your family background, that affects who you think you are today. Maybe some have struggled with money. Maybe in my family, there's been some bankruptcy, and that's affected some people in the family. There's a lot of debt. There's great success. So there's great wealth. That affects us as how we view ourselves. Or poverty really affects how we view ourselves. I was with a young lady last night. There was a wedding. Elder Jeffrey and Lily were there. Wonderful time, wonderful reunion of people, dear friends over many years. A lady in the church that was single for a long time and got married in her, not in her 20s or lower 30s. So we celebrated. I mean, it was a party, when that happens, right? And gosh, what was I going to say? What was my train of thought? Oh yeah, thank you, Alice. I was talking to a young lady who graduated from USC, very, very smart. She was in the IB program at Richard Montgomery High School. Yeah, I saw that hand in the back. And she graduated with an art degree and hasn't been very successful finding a job. So after a number of years, she volunteered with Teach for America, and she's in Baltimore right now. She just moved there. Anybody know anything about Teach for America? Fabulous program, where basically they take the sharpest and brightest people graduating from prestigious universities, and they put them in very troubled, very poor schools. And so she's having a hard time. But man, it was so exciting to listen to her. But on the other hand, heartbreaking because the poverty, it causes the young people, the children that she's teaching, to have a view of themselves that isn't reality. And so she's there and she's wrestling with this as a Christ follower. And so that means you may have the opposite experience. Maybe bad relationships. You just, one girl after another dumps you, or the opposite, or no girl will look at you, or, this is in the future. So this is research I've been doing over the years. This is like 10 years from now, maybe some of you experienced, but some of you parents, you experienced that. And you thought, boy, is anyone ever going to say yes to marry me? Finally, you did find that person, right? Or maybe it's grades, like I just get average grades. I mean, they're like A minuses, just average. I'm not measuring up to where I think, I ought to be as a fill in the blank your last name. Or, maybe it's related to spiritual things and you just struggle thinking, am I a good enough Christian? That's big. Or tragically, maybe some of you have been abused. And that's very painful and very difficult. And because of any number of those things, there are some untruths, some things that are not true, some lies that we wrestle with believing instead of the truth. Maybe if you've thought, well, if I hadn't done something, that wouldn't have happened to me, or what's wrong with me, or I deserve this because of the way that I lived or the family I come from, or I'm full of shame and guilt and not worthy to be loved. We often believe these lies related to our past, our worth based on our past. I made a big mistake, and I just can't forgive myself for what I did. And the bottom line is we feel like I am not good enough. I'm not good enough. Moses battled with this just like so many of us do. So in verses 11 to 13, next couple verses, God speaks truth to Moses. Truth. But his own sense of inadequacy was speaking even louder. So watch the dialogue here. The Lord said to him, "Who gave man his mouth? You who think you are slow to speak. Didn't I say, go? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I have called you. Go. I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." But Moses was like, nah, not me. You got the wrong cat. Well, in this version it says, "Oh Lord, please send someone else to do it." Have you ever actually said that to God? I know I have. Lord, this is a mistake. I must have missed the memo. Moses could not have missed it because the Lord was speaking directly. I mean, there was no doubt about it. But for many of us, we have a hard time discerning, is this the Lord saying what we think He's saying? When lies are wrongly believed, it leads to some dangerous conclusions, right? If we buy the lie, then we draw some conclusions that are dangerous about our lives. Like, well, since I'm not good enough, then I really can't make that much of a difference. Or, why should I even try? I'm not really that good anyway. I can't really talk to my friends about spiritual things. I'm not like this person or that person. I'm not very outgoing. I'm not very extroverted like that person. Or, I don't look like this, or I look like this, or whatever. I fail at everything I do. I'm not good looking enough. Oh, my nose was a little bit small. Maybe that's not what you struggle with, but I'm not talented enough. I'm not this enough, that enough. My body's not right enough. I'm not picking on Leon, but there's a buddy of mine who wrestled in high school, and I was just in touch with him yesterday because he went to the University of Georgia where the Bulldogs play some football down there. Big win yesterday. Go Dogs. And so he was at the game yesterday, and he posted some pictures, and he's a missionary in Indonesia. I've been begging him to come, and I wanted him to be our mission conference speaker, and it just did not work out, unfortunately. One of my best friends in the world, Scott Pounds, I love you if you're watching this. But he was a wrestler, and I just remember, I wasn't too into it. I didn't really follow it in high school, but it's like, you're 131, and you're freaking out because you got to get down to 130. And your body's got to be just right? Leon can attest to this. You gain some weight, you got to lose. It's radical, And it may not be, I'm not good enough, but, in that context, you might think, well, I'm not good enough to fight this weight, but if I just change my body a little bit, then I can do it this weight, That's meticulous when it comes to being inadequate with your body, right? Or, maybe some have even felt, I'm really not even worthy to be loved. So why bother? A lot of people feel that way. I'm not worthy to be loved, so I'm not loving anybody. I'm not trusting anybody. A lot of young ladies give themselves to young men because they think, because of something that happened or didn't happen, or the way they look or didn't look, I'm going to find some love, and this is the way I define it. Happens a lot. Those are lies. You are not what others say you are. You are not what others say you are. And you are not the sum total of your past experiences. You are who God says you are. Everybody look at me real quick. You are who God says you are. That's who you really are. You are not the opinions of others. You are not what happened to you in the past. You are who God says you are. So when the lies creep in, what do? When they creep in, you replace them with truth. And we're going to learn how to do that in a few minutes here this morning. Here's the bottom line. For those of you who are Christ followers, I recognize some of you are not Christ followers yet. Maybe some of you are really open with the fact that you're not. Some of you are wrestling with it. Many of you, most of you probably are, at some point in your spiritual journey, seeking to follow Christ. When you come to Jesus, your old nature dies. That's the truth about who you are. That's what the truth that's revealed through God, through the Bible. That's what Paul lays out clearly for us in the book of Romans and in many other places. Your old nature dies. I just saw a picture this morning. One of my heroes, my mentors, Rick Garland. If you're watching, Rick, thanks, man. He's the one who convinced me to ask Laura to marry her. Laura to marry me. Awesome guy, great communicator, great communicator, and he's teaching a class at the Bible Institute where Laura and I met. And there's just a picture of him. There's a guy on the floor, and there's a picture of him dragging the guy's leg. And the caption of the picture is, "This is what it's like to drag your old self into your new life." That's what we do. That is not who you are. It's gone. Your old nature is gone. You know what the Bible says about who you are? It says you are a new creature. You are a new creation. Brand new creation. Well, what about how I felt this morning? Well, let's get to that. Just because you're spiritually new, that doesn't mean that the old memories, the old videotape, the old audio tape, and the old habits go away. If you used to think one way about who you are, when you become brand new, it doesn't erase those thoughts. that you think or thought about yourself. It doesn't erase the habits that you had in your life. It only erases your old nature, which is dead. And Paul says, now that you have this new nature, live according to it. We're commanded to live according to it. It doesn't happen automatically. It's something that we learn. It's a skill. How do I follow or keep in step with the Holy Spirit? I have to learn to do that. That doesn't just happen automatically. Many of us are struggling in our Christian life. You know Christians that are struggling in their spiritual life because they don't get this. And they think, if I just pray, God will do it. And if He doesn't, I'm not the one. That's what a lot of Christians think. That is wrong. We are often still haunted by those negative tapes that continue to run in our mind. For me, when I came to Jesus, I was 20, okay, so that's going to be different for many of you, especially if you're young people. What happened in my experience is that some of the tape did kind of get sort of half deleted. It's in the out box. It's in the trash can. It's not deleted yet. But I haven't struggled with that piece of my identity anymore. I just haven't. But there's a big piece of it that I think it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. I don't know. I mean, I hope that some of it I won't remember as much. But there's just things that I can't totally delete off the hard drive. So I've been clearing out my computer hard drive because I get this thing that says your startup disk is almost full. Oh man, what's going on? I can figure this out, you know. And so I can delete all these things, and then there's this thing that pops up, and so it's trying to delete, but you know it can't delete this piece. Or do you want to delete all of it? You know, I don't know how that works. Home Pride understands all that. I have no idea, but I'm like, I can't get rid of it, you know. Exactly. Whatever he said. That's like who we are, right? We are this new creation, but there's certain things we can't fully get rid of. It doesn't go away. Those thoughts don't go away. Those habits don't just go away. That's why we need to capture those lies. Capture the lie. The lie says, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not capable enough. We need to capture that and let God's truth renew our minds. That's why Paul says, be transformed. Like Transformers, it's not like a car and then halfway into a robot, like a car bot. It's not like that. It's like, it's a car and then it's totally a robot. It's totally transformed. You can't even recognize it. It's a metamorphosis is the Greek word that's used, where we get the word metamorphosis, right? That means it used to be a caterpillar. Squishy little fuzzy caterpillar. And it's totally poof. It's a butterfly that flies. It's beautiful and gorgeous. That's who you are as a Jesus follower. We start to believe what God says about us. And when we believe what He says about us, then we begin to effectively do what He's calling us to do. And that's the process of transformation that Moses is going through. So what does God say about you? 3 life-changing truths. The first one is this. Don't miss this. You are called by Christ. I think the blank is actually called. So I missed it. I think just in that slide. But you are called by Christ. The creator of this world has called you. He's calling you even in this moment. 1 Peter 5:10. Check this out. In His kindness, God called you to His eternal glory by means of Jesus Christ. In other words, Jesus called you. Jesus is the one that God is using to call you. He's speaking to you. He's calling you. He's the one who has called you. When I was a junior in college, 2000, Laura and I felt like God was calling us to the mission field. So we were getting ready for our first mission trip to South Korea and China. We weren't married. We were engaged. And just before leaving, I'm in my dorm room, just before leaving, the executive director of Word of Life calls my dorm room. So Word of Life has 1,000 missionaries. They're in 50 countries. There are like 25 Bible institutes with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of students all around the world. And I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Tice because of the proximity of where we were, or whatever. And this whole thing was brand new with Word of Life, so he wanted to know who I was. So he calls me. Hey, Ed. I can't do his voice right now. Hey, Ed, this is George Tice. He talks kind of like And I'm like, Dr. Tice, what's up? What? Wrong number? And I won't even try. Can't do his voice. But, he just said, hey, do you have everything you need? Do you have everything you need? Is everything ready? Are you ready to go? Just want you to know that my wife and I are praying for you, and we are excited about what God's doing. Oh man, I hung up the phone. I was like, I was freaked out because this person called me. Dr. Tice. No, none of you have ever heard of him. You're never going to hear from him. Most people in the world are never going to know who that is. But to me, at that moment, that was a big deal. But the Son of the living God, Jesus Christ, has called you. He has called you. The Savior of the world. That little voice that says you're not good enough. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. You are so incredibly special that you are on Jesus' mind. Isn't that awesome? Like you are on the mind of the Creator of the universe. Your spiritual cell phone is ringing now. Don't turn it off. Don't hit mute. Don't turn it off during this service. Keep your spiritual cell phone on, ringer on at all times, because Jesus is calling you. It's a call, and Jesus is saying, I love you. I value you. I care about you. Follow me. Follow me. So who are you in God's eyes? Look at Scripture. 1 Peter 2:9 says, you are a chosen people. Church, you're a chosen people. His very own possession. This is so you can show others the goodness of God. It's not just so you can have a good life. You are a reflector of God in your school. Why? So other people who aren't receptors of the calling yet, so that they can pick up their spiritual cell phone. Man, that's a great line. Hey, you got a cell phone? You're talking to your friend. If you use this next week, let me know how it goes. I'm having a birthday party for my buddy, and a bunch of these non-Christians are going to be in my house tonight. I'm going to use this tonight. I'll let you know how it goes next. Hey, you got a cell phone, right, buddy? Has Jesus called lately? No, I meant your spiritual cell phone, because he's calling your heart. Now, I mean, you don't say it like that, all cheesy, whatever.
You go like you follow Jesus on Twitter.
Yeah, that may not go over so well, but whatever works, all right? Whatever works. But look, Peter says this is so you can show others the goodness of God, for He called you out of darkness. He called you out of darkness. What's darkness? He called you out of the lies. He called you out of the darkness into His wonderful light. You are a recipient of light, of truth. So Jesus Christ is calling you. Secondly, remind yourself of this. You are not only called by Christ, but you are capable through Christ. You're capable through Christ. In Philippians, Paul says this, in the context of everything that he is asking you to do, he says, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Not just everything. Boys, we're going to win this football through Christ. Well, maybe not. We're gonna do this, whatever it is that we think we're supposed to be doing. Well, maybe not. But to all the things that He is calling you about. Ring, ring. Yes. Yes, Ed, I want you to go to your neighbor's house and tell them that I love them. But I'm not. I can't. No, I'm capable. Through Christ, I can. And I can be a part of or a partner in this transforming experience that the gospel brings and is totally able to penetrate any culture, any background, any struggle, any insufficiency or inadequacy that anybody or any people has. It's demonstrated. I mean, have you taken any church history yet, boy? So, right? It's amazing, right? Throughout 2,000 years, you start reading about some of this history and how God has been transforming the lives of people in amazing ways for 2,000 years. Amazing. It's been demonstrated, right?